One time I was on acid up in the Rockies, completely out in the wilderness, right? And I'm sitting in a stream, and I never forget this. And I'm like Vietnam, like apocalypse now or something. Just my head's good, and bugs are all around me. I'm thinking, I'm one with everything. Marley was right. Bob Marley was right. One love. I'm one. I'm one with the bugs. The bugs are one with me. Yeah, but the next day I had mosquito bites all over my face and my head. It's insane, some of the stupid things that I would pass for insight.
And here we are with Ritch. Hi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Stefanie. It really is. I'm in a great mood. I am in a good mood.
Okay.
Reflective, and I don't use the word depression anymore. A little melancholia for the last couple of days, but it's all understandable, and I'm so grateful. I just am grateful. And I'm grateful you asked me to do this.
Well, I know that you're a person who is very public about sobriety. Not that you're not like a sober influencer, but I'm just saying you've been sober a long time. And, it's funny. I thought of getting into this by way of saying you're a comedian.
Yeah.
That will be clear from your introduction. You've been doing stand-up a very long time, a lot longer than I did stand-up for a long time too. Came on a bit later than you. But I did stand-up for like 20 years. And one thing that I was always aware of, first of all, I recently wrote a book about sobriety, and one of the chapters is called "I Drink Because I'm a Comic." And the end of the chapter, you do find out that like that wasn't really the reason, but it was another excuse for my drinking. It's really prevalent in comedy clubs. But one thing that I knew about you from early on was that you were sober, and you helped a lot of guys get sober back in the day. And there was like a group of you guys that were the guys that don't drink. And I remember thinking that was so crazy, and like, they just don't drink. Like they're not, and it was, you know what I mean? Cause I didn't get sober until well after I stopped doing stand up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got sober at 42. But I'd already had, like, I really stopped doing stand up a while before that when I had kids. But anyway, the whole point is that you've been doing this sober thing and leading other people and showing them that they can have a camaraderie and still have fun and still do the road. And I want to know like how that got started.
When I got started, I started doing stand-up comedy. I moved to New York City. I was doing it in Washington, D.C. while I was going to law school for 2 years. And then I just left for New York City, joined the circus in 79.
You joined the 79. Circus? That is
well,
not on your wiki page. Oh, okay.
That's what I call it. That's what I call it. When I always heard that as a kid, right? Had to be in a movie or something. They ran away and joined the circus. And I went, that's kind of what I did when I left for stand-up comedy. It couldn't have been anything more foreign to doing law than running away to New York City to one of the comedy clubs then. And then I got sober in 1985. May 11th, 1985 is my date. And I happened to be getting sober. There were a couple other comics who were around the same age. They got sober like right before me or right after me, right? There was a group of us. And we started doing a benefit show, a yearly benefit show called Yuckaholics that we would, and people who'd come out of rehab that were comics, and they'd be their first sober show would be with us, and famous people, and people aren't famous, but there just seemed to be a group of us. And you're right, we weren't like, proselytized or anything, but you go out on the road and you're sober and people are, you don't drink? What happened? You got a cold, mate? Yeah, I have a cold. Yeah, I have a real allergy. So I have a lot of experiences of people who I talked to, some people successfully and some people not, not successfully, not like I sold them or anything, but gave them an opportunity to look at what they were doing and maybe consider a life without alcohol and drugs, which, look, it's prevalent. I don't think we're more predisposed than other people, but we do have 23 hours to kill between shows. And that is a tremendous opportunity for drinking and drugging. As I found out, I mean, I'd go on runs and I could, you just go on stage for an hour. I mean, I'd went on stage under all sorts of chemicals. I went on stage under acid, mushrooms, course cocaine, course alcohol, weed, everything you could think of. I went on stage and did shows, paying shows, for an hour or sometimes more, but not always successfully, so, according to my standards. But yeah, it was something that happened then at that time in the 80s. I think as a comedic generations, because I am a bit of a comedic historian, a stand-up comic historian. I do a show about the history of stand-up comedy. And in terms of sobriety, we were the first generation to sort of break out and go. As a group, there was a group of us that expanded and then kept expanding. And then following generations could come in and go, oh, those guys did it sober. They did it. They weren't like straight edge, as the kids call it now. Never have done it. They
Right.
did it. Like Jay Leno never drank or did drugs.
Oh, I didn't
But
know that.
yeah, but we were ones who did and then quit and successfully
It's
continued doing
interesting.
stand up.
My father, I don't know if you know this, but my father was a comedian in the 60s and the 70s, Stanley Myron Handelman. And I write about him
Do I know Stanley Myron Handelman?
being a historian, right?
Yes, of course I do. Of course I do.
So I grew up around that a bit, and he was big. Dean Martin and the Smothers Brothers and all these shows.
Well,
And
I became very friendly with Tommy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he's dead, so I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but he was a pill popper like from early on. I mean, he was on pain pills his whole life, And
Who are you speaking of now?
my father,
Your father. Okay.
Stanley, yeah, he was
Yeah,
a
you mentioned Tommy. I was confused. I
oh
just
oh
want to
oh
make sure it wasn't Tommy or I
no
just
no 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 no.
yeah,
My
yeah. Your
father,
dad, your father
I'm
was a pill
speaking of,
popper. Yeah.
yes, he was always on pills as long as I can remember. And I there was a time that I was just like, oh, I hate that. It's you grew up with that, and it seems horrible to you, and now he's fucked up all the time, and he takes his pills, and then he's slurring his words, and sure enough, I developed a love of the pain pills as well. It's like and I'm not saying even that it's genetic, but it didn't seem that strange to me to think, oh yeah, I need a drink or a Xanax or something before I go on stage. Like that's I have to take the edge off.
Well,
Otherwise, I'm too nervous.
I totally get it. I never liked going on stage with any kind of influence. I knew I was an alcoholic before I knew I was an alcoholic, so I didn't like to go on stage. I didn't drink before it unless I messed up. There were a few times, like I just said, and I messed up. But otherwise, I went on stage straight, as straight as I could be in my, in my
Well,
uh,
how do you
composition.
accidentally go on stage like on acid?
Yeah, you do. I did because I was still tripping when on stage. I was still tripping. I came back and I was opening up for a group, a Spyro Gyra at the cellar door in there's like a jazz group in Washington D.C. and I was opening up for them and we'd been tripping on acid and acetique, which is an island. And my girlfriend and I and the other people came back. We were all tripping our brains out still, just completely mistimed it. Maybe we popped some more. I don't know, whatever happened. But I went on stage and I got into a riff and I never forget because she was like, I can remember a riff of like, man in his infinite stupidity and God in his wisdom, I brought you. And Popeel Pocket Fisherman, whatever I would come out with after that, and I thought it was hilarious, but I was leading a one-man charge up Comedy Hill and nobody was following. And so my girlfriend had a roast beef sandwich and threw the roast beef sandwich at me. And I remember she's tripping too. She's in the audience to try to break me out of this to go back to like do something that maybe had worked before in front of audiences, because there were a couple hundred paying people there, and the roast beef hung on my shoulder. So then this got really really funny where I would just take bits and eat it. I said food is there, it's everywhere. Wherever you want it, it just appears. And so that became a funny riff. Where by luck, it was all luck. That I fell into that, and then got out alive, got out without bombing. But
So you
I
got sober kind of early into your stand-up career.
well, I had already done the Tonight Show. I'd not done Letterman yet, but I'd done the Tonight Show, and I'd done the second Tonight Show. I got what happened there? You there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of, and now I have to. You there?
Yep. Can you see me?
I can't see you. See, my wife is not here to. This is okay. Can you see me?
I can see you just fine.
Okay.
But go ahead and try to figure out what the
Yeah, I'll
issue
figure it out later. So I had done a Tonight Show. It was successful. I managed to quit drinking and drugging for about a week before, just cold turkey. And the second one, I couldn't do it. I did very good well the first time, and the second time, they brought me back to like 2 months later, and I was drinking and drugging with Sam Kinison, who was very dark-sided comedian, you know. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, he said, this set you're doing, and you know, back then they at least for comics like me, they would lock you into a set before, and you just practice it for a couple of weeks. And I had now in my mind, after staying up all night with Sam the night before I was doing a second Tonight Show, that I was going to change what I was going to do, and I managed to convince the booker. Jim McCulley was the booking agent for the Tonight Show. I managed to convince him to let me do this piece about. I think his name was not Barney Clark, maybe Barney Clark. He was the first artificial heart recipient, and then I had a whole bit about the defibrillator paddles, and it was crazy. It was crazy, and Johnny hated it because Johnny had fear of having a heart attack because he was, you know, a 4-pack-a-day smoker, and he didn't want to hear this heart attack material.
Right.
So
But
it was
Jim
not a
had
good.
approved it for you? Jim
He
said, okay,
approved
go
it. That's
ahead.
the only thing is, because I badged him. What I did was I led off with what I really wanted to close with before we came to that was a piece I was doing about. We went and saw Sam and I went and saw this. It was hard rockers for Jesus. They were called Striper. It was a rock and roll band for Jesus. You know, they were the first like Christian rock band called Striper. And the guy came out and opened the concert by saying, you know, Jesus was the first rock and roller. And I went, he just put the Son of God in showbiz. That's where I went. So I did a whole thing about Jesus had tour jackets, you know, Jesus World Tour 1 BC. I had all this sort of stuff. Jesus talking to his agent was a big deal that I did. And that's what it was closed. And Macaulay's like, you can't do that. You can't. No, you're not doing that on Tonight Show. Then I talked him into doing the artificial heart stuff. So I got in trouble, and I was never going to come back to Tonight Show again. And I spiraled from there. I went on a run. I didn't quit drinking. I had to drink to get out of the house, even to get out to the Improv and do a set. I'd have to drink before I left the house. I had, you know, that time and then I had a moment of clarity where I just said, I got to quit drinking. I kept saying it at the bar, I got to quit drinking at the Improv bar. And Eddie, the bartender, got sick of me saying that in between kicking the jukebox when songs came on I didn't like. I was a regular nuisance. That's it. And he sicked the guy on. I used to drink. He sicked the guy on me. He sicked the guy who was sober about a month. Mark S. came in and said, you want to quit drinking? I said, yeah. And next day he came to my house and I couldn't get off the couch in time to avoid him. And he took me to my first meeting of a group of like-minded individuals who their whole purpose was to quit drinking. So I went with them. And that's where it started for me.
What are you looking for?
What?
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for something to change this thing. I was seeing there's something on the floor that might be something I could, because right now I'm just looking at a screen, and it's disconcerting not to be looking at you, right?
What does it say on your screen? Does it have a little video?
No, there's nothing on the screen. There is nothing on the screen.
Oh, it's a
there
blank
is
screen.
Can
you hit can you hit the keyboard and see if it stops? Maybe it fell asleep.
Yeah. Apparently that's what I did. I hit the keyboard by mistake, and I keep hitting escape trying to get the thing to change, and it's not. So
and you can't
I know
see
my
anything?
wife left to go take a walk, so that's that. You know, I don't know what's going on here.
Text her, tell her to come home. Back here. Yeah. Well, we'll keep talking on when she gets
we'll
back.
keep talking. We'll keep talking,
she can
Stefanie.
Start you back up, but so you go to a meeting.
Yeah.
Was that it? Were you
Yeah,
sober
that
ever
was the
since then?
start of my journey. I mean, there was a woman spoke about her problems with alcohol, and this is an old reference, but you would get it. June Cleaver she was so well put together. So, a professional looking woman. And I was so scruffy at the time and feeling worse than scruffy. And she was beaming up there, you know what I'm saying? And when she walked up, I was like, I gotta get out of here. I don't want to hear you might as well have said she was going to do an Amway presentation, or something, or try to sell me a timeshare. And then she opened her mouth and completely touched my heart, which I didn't even know I had one. I mean, she started speaking about things that I thought I was the only person in the world who felt like that, and her problems with alcohol, and I related to them completely. And so I said, well, these people seem to be doing this. I never trusted anything, but they all seem to be talking about, other people spoke, about the same sort of things. And I'm like, this is all I want to do is quit drinking and drugging. That's all I just had in my mind. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't care about anything else. And that sound kind of served me well. I think that you have to really be done with it. You have to really be done with the alcohol and drugs to be done with it. And I was done with it, and the alcohol and drugs were done with me. And so I
I
just
feel the same way. I think that's such a great way to put it. It's some people say in our group, I wish you desperation, but it doesn't
absolutely,
even. But it's about just feeling like I'm done, like I don't
yeah,
have it. I don't have any more tries in me, which is
yeah.
kind of how I felt.
Everything I could get out of it, I got out of it. Look, it knocked down a lot of walls for me. I had a lot of fear, and the alcohol took away a lot of my fear. And all that sort of thing. And look, I did some hallucinogens, which opened up some windows for me. But I was done. I was not getting anything out of it like that way anymore. You're right. I was just. I really believe that. I think if I had any Mickey Mouse moves left with alcohol, if I thought in any kind of way that it might serve me in some fashion, but I'd already proven it couldn't, and didn't. And so
How did it
I was
change your relationships with, with your comic friends? Did you become a person, yeah, who was like, "Oh, I don't want to hang out with Rich. Like he
Well,
doesn't drink
look, there
anymore."
were people who point back and said to me, "Oh, you were funnier when you were drinking and drugging." I said, "Funnier for you, but you weren't in my house at 5 in the morning when I was trying to crawl out of my skin, or when I was looking at the clock, staring, waiting for it to get to 8 o'clock so I could get to the liquor store and get some. You weren't there. You weren't that. That wasn't funny for me. That wasn't good for me." But there were people who said that. And look, I was married, and my first wife was a comedian. We went to Lucy L. Adobe's. I remember this early in my sobriety. Lucy L. Adobe's had these giant margaritas. I mean, they were in a tanker. They were like half-gallon margaritas. They were huge. We loved them. That's her and I would love to go there and get a Mexican meal and drink these margaritas. And I'm sober and she's drinking, and she just looks. She goes, "You're not as much fun when you're not drinking." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And you're not exactly who I thought I was married to either. So that didn't last long. I mean, I got sober and got out of that marriage, and
That
and
now that's so interesting. Can you like say a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that idea of, is it going to change my relationship? But
oh,
it seems
it
more
completely,
important. Mhm.
completely. Somebody used this metaphor for me. It's like you're living your life you have a script, right? And everybody around you has the script, and you're all working off the same script. And the script was Rich drinks and does drugs, and sometimes he's a little erratic, but he's a good sideshow. He's got a lot of moves in him. He's always up to something. And then you change the script. You say, "I'm not going to do those things anymore," and you're talking about things that they don't have the script for anymore.
Right.
Their lines don't match what you're saying anymore.
Right. But
And
did you
and
feel
look, and
sad about that? Did you feel
ah,
sad that like,
oh,
oh, my wife is not, she's upset. This is going to change my relationship. I'm not going to have her.
I really bought into that. Anything that got in the way of my sobriety had to be removed from my life, whether it be
That's
a job, a relationship, whatever. If I was going to stay sober, I had to put that first. I bought into that, and it has served me. I was like, okay, that's it. And I gave it a try in sobriety. I mean, it wasn't that I moved out and then we tried dating. I hooked up a couple of times after that, but it was not the same. It was just not there anymore. I mean, it wasn't like I just walked out and never looked back.
Yeah.
I tried to make it work with me being sober and her not being sober. And I'm not saying, and of course, I'm not saying she's an alcoholic in any way, but a lot of people, when I look back at my history and I say people, women, because I was only involved romantically with women, a lot of women were able to hide their, um, I don't want to say this, diseases. They were able to hide their afflictions and addictions in the shadow of mine because I was so big and loud in mine. So if you had a bit of a drinking problem, you could go, well, my husband or my boyfriend is a crazy maniac, and I don't have to feel so bad about the amount I drink or my eating disorder or whatever, because this guy is out of control.
Right.
So you afford that for them, for some people, you know.
That's so true. That's really true. And then when you stop drinking and you take your drinking and drugging out of the equation, what you're left with is theirs, I'm sure, seems a lot bigger, more intrusive.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what
And
happened several times. And look, along the way, I went out with women who were still drinking and drugging, and it didn't last. I remember, it was just, I asked this one woman, she was coming over to my apartment. This is after my marriage ended. Beautiful young woman and actress and lively, but she'd always come over, coked up, drunk. And at one point, in one aspect, hey, that's a lot, okay, that's fine. But at one point, I was like, this doesn't work for me anymore. I don't even know if you're really here. You know what I'm saying? And
of
so
course,
I said, you can't do it anymore. You stop doing that, And she was, the next night at the Improv, she showed up with another guy. It was like, she was like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to quit drinking and drugging.
right, right.
Yeah.
I found that when I quit drinking, sort of, there was like a group of people that I guess I drank with that didn't invite me to do stuff. And their reason was that they didn't want me to feel uncomfortable because they knew that I was sober. But I think it's because they didn't want to feel uncomfortable about their own drinking by having somebody who wasn't doing it around them.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. Look, I mentioned Sam. I'll say it again. Sam, in the summer '85, the Rodney Dangerfield special rocketed Sam Kinison.
Oh, I
Just
remember it. I remember seeing it in the first
right,
place before he was
right.
famous at all. Yeah.
Yeah. But that special rocketed him. And so I'm sober a couple of months, 2 months, and Sam comes up to me at this comedy store, and says, hey, you got to come up to the house, man. We got a new place. And, he was rolling, man. And he said, you got to be, get up there and we're making plans, man. You got to be part of it. And I knew if I went up there, there's no way I was going to stay sober. I mean, I never did anything with him prior to that where alcohol and drugs wasn't involved. And I was only sober, maybe less than 2 months. I don't know, somewhere in there. And so I went back to my little one. I had a studio apartment in West Hollywood, and I struggled with it, about not going up there. I kept looking at the clock, and I'm smoking cigarettes at the time, and I finally called up some guys in AA. Oh shit, I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
finally called some friends. You can edit that out. I finally called up some friends who were staying sober themselves, and they helped me get through that period of not going up there. But there were a lot of people who were, I lost a role in a sitcom, flat out Showtime sitcom. I was told I had the part, and then the guy who was the executive producer was like, "Well, coming up to the house," and I came up. I wasn't drinking and drugging, and everybody involved was. He called it a writing session, but it was a no way writing session. It was just drinking and drugging, and I don't think somebody was taking notes or whatever, but it was just that way. And after 2 sessions of me not going up there, of me going up there and not drinking, my agent called me and said, they're recasting your role because I
Wow.
wouldn't drink and drug. flat out told me. He told me, he said, you know, man, this is what this going. This show's about, man, is rock and roll. This show's about, you know, blah 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 and all that BS. And you got to be in the groove with us, man. And you were in the groove with us before. Now you're not. And I said, okay, well, if I lost that role, I lost that role. I'm still not going to drink a drug. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. So you at the beginning you get sober and then you start to attract some like-minded. How did this like your kind of sober posse? I mean, it was infamous.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so funny
You have a
because
group of guys,
I
comedy tour
know,
guys,
I know.
improv guys, and like you knew that was the sober crew, man. You guys had your own like meetings. There was a group of you.
Yeah, we,
I
I don't.
dated some of them.
How did you? Okay. You'll have to tell me that about that sometime. Uh, we we drank. A lot of us drank and did drugs together on the road, and then we got sober. So we had that experience before with each other, where we knew, you know, we knew how far this guy would go. Like I believed that guy was an alcoholic and a drug addict because I was with him when we got thrown out of the hotel. You know, I know that. So we had that experience before, and then of course, there weren't a lot of us sober at that time. So we, of course, bonded. And, you know, it'd be great if I walked into the comedy store and I'd see one of the guys, you know, and so it would be good because, I mean, you know, comedy store was a dark place. The improv had its own vibe. And there were people who, look, Jerry Seinfeld, Paul Reiser, there were a lot of people who weren't into alcohol and drugs that way. I don't even know if Jerry even drank. I don't remember seeing him with that any sort of thing. I'm just saying there were people who weren't into it, but there was also a lot of, especially road comics, man. If you got on the road, I remember getting on a plane with a comic, you know, and he's like, oh my God, man, we're going to the same place. Oh, we're going to party, man. Oh, I've heard about you, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, I don't drink and do drugs anymore. He goes, I guess we're not going to see much of each other this week, then, are we? I go, no, we're not.
And so, did a lot of those guys stay sober? I mean, because some of the ones that I'm thinking of s- still sober to this day. A few of them passed away, but passed away sober.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure, and I told you I wanted to ask you about this, and I'm sure you lost a few to this disease along the
Oh,
way.
man.
But
Yeah.
do you still have some of these guys in your life that remained sober?
Oh, absolutely. Talk to them all the time. Bob and I our sobriety dates are about 3 weeks apart. We're both coming up on 41 years, one day at a time. Uh, and we drank and did drugs together. We talk all the time, all the time. I see a lot of these guys. I live in Asheville, North Carolina now, so I don't go to the meetings that they go to anymore. But we still contact each other on social media. We contact each other on phone and talk on the phone. And there are a lot of guys like that, and I lost guys along the way. I mean, I got in, like I said, I bought it. And when I went out on the road, I went to, you know, I contacted people wherever I went. It didn't matter where I went. I contacted people to help me stay sober wherever I was. You know, people,
Yeah.
there were like-minded people I could find in any town who and it helped me stay sober. But some people they didn't buy the whole thing. I mean, I just did what everybody else was doing to stay sober. And I lost a friend and Mike, I'll say his name. I don't care. Everybody knows him. And Mike McDonald. And we met in 1980 when I first road tour thing. It was almost accidental, the road tour that I took up in Canada to Yuck Yucks. I went to Ottawa and then Montreal and then Yuck Yucks in Toronto. And we met in Toronto. And we instantly became friends. I mean, instantly. It was like two brothers. And so over the years, you know, we were just tight. And when I got sober, and you know, look, if you hung out with me like that, I wasn't hanging out with people who didn't drink and do drugs the way I did, and Mike did, and then he came into the rooms with me, and my wife, who knew him and knew me, she said, you two would walk in and change the atmosphere in a room. You'd come in just like two gunslingers, bam, just start joking. And we had a good time. We had a great time together. And then he went out on the road and decided he could just have a beer and didn't tell me about it. I wasn't his mentor in any way. You were just close friends. And I guess he didn't have the structure I had that I'd built. And he did that. And of course the beer led him back to what he really wanted to do was shooting up drugs. And then that destroyed his liver ultimately. And so it's been 8 years since he's gone. And yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. That is what St. Patrick's Day means to me every year now. That the Mike died, and it used to be like it meant like going out to a bar and hopefully getting into a fist fight. If you couldn't find a woman getting into a fist fight, some sort of drunken drama on St. Patty's Day. But now it means that, and I don't know. I don't know. I was not smarter than him, and I don't know. There's a kind of mysteries you live with, right?
Yeah. How much later after you got sober did Sam Kinison die?
Well, Sam was trying to get sober, and I talk to him all the time, and I know who was mentoring him and helping him in a real personal way, and I was too. I'd go, meet me at this place, Sam, and sometimes he'd show up, and sometimes he wasn't. He was really trying. Sam died in I think it was 1992, I believe. So I would have been 7 years sober then, and he was trying. He was trying. He had a hard time, and the other comics have had this thing too, thinking because I did. I thought that I was funny because of the alcohol and drugs. I thought they helped me be funny, and didn't realize that they were keeping me from truly being funny. They were keeping me from elevating my writing and elevating my material and you know what I mean? They were keeping me from that. And I had the same discussion with Sam. Sam had a particular issue. I don't know if you remember his necrophiliac bit.
No.
Okay, he had a bit about there was a news article that a California mortician was having sex with corpses. So Sam had a bit about the corpse laying there and going, "I just died, and I'll be one with the universe soon. All my troubles are behind me." And all of a sudden, he's oh, it never ends. So it was a hilariously dark bit, and Sam was like, "I'm never going to top that." He felt he had painted himself into a comedic corner with it. And I said, "Sam, you don't know what's in you." I'd seen a director, John Sayles, who did a question and answer. I think the movie was Matawan. I went to one of the screenings, and he talked about a lot of creativity can be found in making habits and breaking habits. So I was trying to convince Sam that making new habits and breaking those old habits is going to lead him into a new bit of creativity. That it had worked for me, and that he doesn't know what's beyond the alcohol and drugs, like what is open to him. And he was struggling with that, but he was really trying to get sober.
When I got sober, I was already an author. So I wrote a book that kind of made fun of how much I drank. I was not sober. And then I wrote a follow-up to that also was about how much I love drinking. I mean, that wasn't the point of it. It was about parenting, but a lot of my jokes had to do with alcohol. And then I had a book deal. I had written a third book, and then I was trying to write the fourth book. I had already been paid for it, you see. And when I quit drinking, and I was like, one of my biggest things I knew I had to quit drinking, and I did quit drinking, but I was really scared I wasn't going to be able to write this book because I don't think I'd ever written sober before. Like the way I started writing in the first place, I'd had a few glasses of wine and started a blog. Like the way I got the book deal, I was really scared that that's where my creativity came from, was me taking down some of my inhibitions. And, I felt like without alcohol, I'm very inhibited and my self-esteem, like I just don't think I'm that funny. Like but when I've had a few drinks, I'm like, oh, this is
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
And I couldn't believe that I actually could write sober. It was a muscle and I had to do it. And it was a little bit uncomfortable at first. And then I was like, oh, I'm a much better writer.
Yeah.
First of all, I stay awake longer because when I would drink, I would have some wine and then I would go, I'm going to write 1,000 words. And then I'd get really tired and go to bed, you know?
I'm gonna write 1,000 words tomorrow.
Yeah.
The 30 today, the 30 I wrote today, they're choice words, and I'll build on that tomorrow.
Exactly, exactly. I jotted down some ideas. We're good. Yeah. And but it was shocking how much better I was, and everything I did was better. And I did do stand up a few times after I'd gotten sober, and I was like, "Oh, it's not that hard. I'm just clear when I'm up
Yeah,
here."
yeah, yeah. Look,
I wish
that doesn't
everybody
mean
could try that.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I wish everybody could realize. I wish because I think a lot of people are scared they're not going to be creative.
Well, that could well be true. And again, I don't want to make it sound like there was no creativity behind the alcohol and drugs, because there was at one point, and there's some great works of art, great music, great books written by people who were under the influence of all sorts of things at different times. It did not work for me, but for some people it works for, and for some people the short amount of time it works for, do a bunch of speed and write on the road or whatever. But and then what's next? You know what I mean? So some people do one thing or another. Even the great ones, and Eric Clapton, one of my favorite albums of all time was Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. Well, I know that there was so much alcohol and drugs involved in that recording of that album. But there's also a great amount of talent behind that.
Right.
And then even that person, Eric Clapton, who was the driving force behind that, he flamed out, and then he came back and had another style, another bit of creativity.
There's one though that you gotta feel bad about, and that is James Taylor. Because man, did he write some beautiful songs on heroin, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, he
You
did.
just can't deny that.
I used to call him. When I was young, before I even got into comedy, somebody said, "We're promoting James Taylor." I said, "James Taylor, music to hang yourself by." That was my line about that,
Yeah, it's
fire and rain and all that. Yeah, all that stuff, and it's like, but yeah, I get it, man. I mean, and I'm sure James will go, yes, but I was not going to be doing that for long.
I mean, and that's what
2
you're
albums
kind of
and done.
saying. Yeah, that's what
What?
you're kind of saying too. I'm sure that just like people that were like, man, Rich, you were so much funnier when you were drinking. I bet you James had the same thing. I bet you there were people that were not that worried about his heroin use and like, man, you wrote some great songs when you were like fucked up on H. And he was probably had to say the same thing. Yeah, well, now I'm much happier and my kids have a dad and I'm married and
Yeah.
you know what? So maybe my songs aren't for you. Don't buy them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know what? I don't need you speaking at my funeral either. You know what I mean? So like we were like, oh man, I'll speak at your funeral. Just keep writing on heroin.
So, this is totally off topic, but I feel like you're the person to ask this to. How do you feel about, because you were saying that you had some real breakthroughs on acid, on some like that kind of psychedelics maybe. And there's been this, I don't know if it's a resurgence, but there's been a thing where people are doing ketamine, doing psilocybins. Have you ever felt like, what if I could just do that? Would that, you know what I'm asking, right? And I'm not going to do it, but I'm just saying, I know a lot of sober people that have had their minds tricked a little bit with like, would that be helping sobriety? Because it's supposed to also help with addiction. And I know, listen, I'm fine and I'm very happy and I'm sober going on 17 years. So not for me, and I know that wouldn't be for me. But what is your feeling about that?
Well, people will go like, have you thought about microdosing mushrooms or ketamine? If I could microdose, I wouldn't be in the shape I'm in. I never could microdose anything. And apparently neither could other people, because there are people who famously were doing ketamine, microdosing ketamine and going, well, I like this so much, I need to get more of it. That's what I do. When I feel good, I go, wow, I'm not a little bit is fine. I'll do, you know what I mean? A friend of mine, again, I'm going to say his name. I'm not going to say his name, but he years ago, a pretty, very successful comic. And he said, I want to write something. And in college, I used to write really well on speed. Rich, can you get me some speed? And this is when I was still using, And so, yeah, I'll get you some speed. And I got him some speed. He's like, right. Yeah, he said, yeah, I loved it, man. I wrote all night. The problem with speed is, the problem is when you're coming down, it's really hard to come down. I said, well, Bill, that's what more is for. That's what you don't have that. I have a gear called more. We're not going to come down. We're going to just keep doing more until we flame out and crash land the plane, because that's how it is. But for someone like this guy who's not an alcoholic or not an addict, he says, well, I know I got to quit doing. I got to stop. I got to come down. It's we don't have the same mindset or
Right.
the same physical condition. So, and the people who do ketamine is the same thing, or I call it hiawatha. People who are doing, go down to Costa Rica, do some hiawatha. I said, I did sweat lodges and peyote. I did all that stuff. One time I was on acid up in the Rockies, completely out in the wilderness, right? And I'm sitting in a stream, and I never forget this. And I'm like Vietnam, like apocalypse now or something. Just in my head, and bugs are all around me. I'm thinking, I'm one with everything. Marley was right. Bob Marley was right. One love. I'm one. I'm one with the bugs. The bugs are one with me. Yeah, but the next day I had mosquito bites all over my face and my head. Apparently they felt okay with some of my blood. It's insane, some of the stupid things that I would pass for insight, But I could get that same feeling without it. And I do things. I run, I exercise. I found all sorts of ways of getting it. The adrenaline's the last high to avoid. I used to be late for things. I like to be late. You know why I like to be late? Because then I get all jacked up on adrenaline, drive like a maniac through traffic. So I get that adrenaline high. But I
Right.
stop being late because it's not good.
But that really makes sense for I'm glad I asked, because you think in your mind, you go, well, if I did ayahuasca, you can't just do more. You can't go like, oh my God, a little ayahuasca is good. Like, give me some more of that. You
Yeah.
can't. So part of your brain goes, well, maybe if I did ayahuasca, I could really once and for all heal some of this like childhood stuff and like you said, get one with things and I don't know, talk to my ancestors and the whole thing. But I think what you're saying is really true. It's like, well, if you're an addict, maybe, of course, you're not going to overdo it while you're doing it. You're going to do the ayahuasca, puke, see some spirits, and then move on. But then you're going to want to go, well, once was good, so I should go back and plan another trip. And then, well, that was good too, so I should plan another trip. And it's the whole mind fuck, whereas you could go for a really long walk. And really, it's probably all, I just don't think for me, that's just not meant for me.
I
I've never had good experience. It's never gone well.
no, no. I look. I had childhood. There was a lot of violence in my childhood. Now, my dad got sober, and my dad and I, the last 30 years of his life, we loved each other, hold hands, watch baseball together, holding hands. I mean, my dad and I we cleared things up with each other, beautiful. But in my childhood, he was a young guy. He was filled with a lot of fear and anger, and he was a bastard child, and he was violent, a lot of violence. Now, I'm wired in a certain way. I work every day to circumvent that wiring. I ritual, I get up, I pray, I meditate, I exercise. This is not like an option, because if I don't, things go off the rails with my mental health. So I do a lot of stuff to keep myself, functioning in whatever level I'm functioning. And I don't do it. It's not an easy way. There's not an easy way of doing it. There's not a pill to take to get over. I'm never going to get over my childhood. I understand it. I've gone through all the therapy. I did all the work in all sorts of manner. I understand it. I understand what happened. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't their fault. It happened. But what the result of it is, I'm not gonna wake up in the morning and go, oh, it's a beautiful day, and everybody's out there waiting to see me, and I'm excited about. I don't wake up that way.
Right.
My wife will wake up and go, I had a dream. This is a true dream. She goes, and she's a big Paul Simon fan. Right? And my wife goes, I had a dream. And Paul Simon, I was in a dream with Paul Simon, and I said, you could start any conversation with, wow, that's interesting. You could, and Paul Simon went, yeah, that's how she has a dream. Okay, right? I wake up like I was fighting two guys who had assaulted a woman, and I had them, and then I didn't have them, and one guy was choking me, and I was choking the other guy. That's the dreams I have.
Right.
Okay, right? And it's insane that I never have those kind of dreams that she has. I have a dream where I can fly, and then I need to fly to help somebody, and then I can't fly. When I need it, I don't have it.
Right.
So these are the themes that go, and I wake up and I have to move away from that. I have to, autocorrect what's going on with my mental health. And it's not an easy way.
No, no, it's not. But it's what has to be. And I think what you're saying is drugs and alcohol would certainly not make that better. You're not going to suddenly start waking up like, wow, what a great night of sleep I had. I had some finally some positive dreams.
First of all, I'm an old man now. I wouldn't last long. I'm 73, so there's no lasting long in any scenario that I can come up with. And I'm a big mouth in a bar anyway. So some young guy, they would knock me out. I'd be one of those guys that they found him. He froze to death in the alley. Somebody threw him out and he landed in the alley and he didn't get up and then he froze to death. Some stupid death like that. That's all it waits for me to drinking a drunk or drunk driving accident, and hurt somebody, which I avoided that. Luckily, I'd only broke a few of my bones. I never hurt anybody else, but that's waiting for me. So there's nothing waiting for me.
No. But so tell me what you're doing now. I know that you took a break from stand up for a long time, but then you came back to it and you're doing stand up pretty regularly, right?
Yeah, I did. I did it was 8 shows in Israel in January. And I went over there part of a charity thing, and it was transformative for me. And I had so much fun coming up with material there and doing greatest hits, and the people were fabulous, and it was all that I could have imagined. And if that's the last time I do straight stand up, that's fine with me. I don't have any plans to do stand up. I like to write. I just wrote a screenplay with Felicia Michaels, and Felicia and I. It's about show business in the Civil War. It changed the culture then, and
Wow.
And the first stand-up comic started then during the Civil War, Artemis Ward, and the first sex symbol in America, Ada Menken. They were wild people. They were savages. In fact, Walt Whitman called them splendid savages, so we wrote that, and I enjoyed. I just want to write more. That's it. And I still do this stand-up history show once in a while. I just did it last week in Winston-Salem, which is not far from me, and I love doing that. And that's it, And
Where can people find you? You're not. Are you on
I put these
Instagram, or
videos
you're mostly on Facebook?
Yeah, I put Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I put these videos up about stand-up history. I put up like a couple a week or whatever. I've done 220 or 30 whatever of them, and I like doing those. I get a kick out of that.
It's amazing.
But you're so bright-eyed. You must be sober. You're really bright-eyed. You really are.
Love sobriety.
You're like you really listen. You look at somebody sometimes they're like, oh, I see something, but you're like.
Well, by you saying that, I'm assuming my picture came back.
Yeah, I took care of that a while. Ago.
Okay.
I didn't want to make it. I don't want to make anything about it. That I saw the Bible and went, oh, it says here, go look password. I went, oh, I know her password. Let's try that password. So I just did that a while ago.
I see. It went to sleep and you needed to wake the computer.
Yeah, something happened.
Well, this has been so great and different. As I was telling you before I hit record, I've had a lot of people I know, a lot of mom comedians, but I loved this conversation, and you're putting a lot of good out in the world, Ritch Shydner, and I'm proud to have you on the show. So thank you.
It's again. So nice, Stefanie. Thank you. And I never would have guessed. You said who my father was. I wouldn't have guessed Stanley Myron Harriman.
Yeah, and you don't really know. Like, I know you because you're a big name in comedy. I mean, we've met many times, but like Comedy Store, but many years ago. So don't think you're losing your mind because I'm like, you kind of know me, but maybe not. Anyway.
But look, I've had, once a woman came up to me and my cousin was standing there, and he goes, and she walks away angry, and I go, why? Wasn't I nice to me? He says, Rich, you just didn't meet her. You slept with her 2 nights ago.
Oh, 2 nights
This is when I
ago.
was still drinking, right? So I go, so now when somebody says like you did, I go, was it before 1985 or after 1985? Was I nice or was it an asshole? Which was I nice? Was I nice? Okay, good.
You've
I
always
take.
been nice.
Oh,
All
good.
right.
That's so good to hear. That's
Thank
so
you,
good to hear.
everybody. Come back next week for more. This has been Drunkish. Goodbye.
Feeling like life is good.